This is Ron Burgundy, my dad's old truck that I grew up in. I'm currently on a mission to turn it into the all-time baddest truck on the planet. And in this video, we're gonna tackle some mechanicals, such as, I don't know, minor things like a Pro Charger and a big fat cam. And it's gonna be badass. Hopefully, by the end of this video, this thing runs. Now, will that happen? I don't know. We'll have to find out. So let's get to work. If you remember the first episode of this series, I tore Ron apart along with this parts truck in hope of just swapping some body panels and making something nice. But it hit a brick wall when I discovered a bunch of rust on the rear frame rail. You may now notice Ron's frame is basically brand new again. I took it to my very talented friend Chad, who fabricated some patch panels for the rust, along with custom built reinforcements for the frame. This thing is stronger than it ever was, and it looks beautiful. My goal is to just pull the whole core support off so then I can access the front of the motor way easier. I'm just now noticing it looks like 4 relays caught on fire in the fuse box at some point. We'll deal with that later. Now I should, in theory, be able to just remove the entire core support assembly. Core support assembly is off. Look at this. Look at this. Hello, Ron Burgundy's 6.0 liter. I think it's ready for some modification. Now I'm replacing the cam, and I also have to pull the intake to replace the knock sensors and a bunch of other stuff. So I'm getting the water pump out of the way first to make it easier to access it all. Before I do the cam, I'm gonna pop off the intake, swap the knock sensors, and then I can change the injectors as well. Throttle cable and cruise control cable. Now I should be able to just pop the intake off. Adios. Bye-bye. You. Crank bolt. Right now. Pulley off. Now that the motor's all apart, I'm taking it upon myself to actually clean it and toss some paint on it and make it look nice because I'm here, it's out in the open, and I'm gonna be putting a blower on it, so it's gotta look pretty. I'm gonna make these aluminum cylinder heads look like they're fresh out the box. After that minor distraction, I'm gonna toss in the knock sensors and new harness. These are AC Delco, don't buy cheap ones, they suck. Now I can yank off the timing cover. Damn, 180-something thousand miles, Ron Burgundy's not looking bad. We're now in the secret parts storage area, and I'm going to look through my LS parts that I bought for Tomato last year and ended up not using because I ended up putting an LS1 in it that was already built. I have red valve covers, which I will not be installing on top, but I do have the truck Norris camshaft, which I will be installing. I do have new timing gears, which I will use. I have the push rods I will likely need. I have upgraded rocker arms. I might use the upgraded rocker arms. I don't need valve springs because Ron already has LS6 springs in it, which will work. I don't need the lifters because we're not pulling the heads. I don't need the ARP studs because we're not pulling the heads. I was kind of hoping I had a timing cover here, but I don't. So I guess I'm gonna have to clean that one out. Oh, it's cloudy, dude! How many monkeys does it take to change the tooth sensor?
A lot. It takes a lot. It's hard.
Yo, it's shit, right?
Oh, we gotta hold Zach's asshole from prolapse if he's doing this. Someone stick a finger up there.
Oh, it's hot in there, dude.
Yeah, it's getting pretty hot in there.
Zach, you can do something in your back pocket.
Gonna pop these off. Oh god, those valve covers are gross.
Now I'm gonna pop the valve covers off.
Wow, doesn't look too bad.
Doesn't look too bad now. Rockers off. These rocker arms have upgraded trunnions so they can take a little bit more force, and I'm gonna use them, even though they were originally for tomato, because we're boosting this thing and I want as little failure points as I can have. And before I install them, I'm gonna take the old rockers off and clean these mounts really, really well. Push rods can come out in preparation for the cam swap. Gonna be changing the plugs out, and since I gotta crank the motor over, I'll take them out now. I know I said I was gonna replace the timing chain and gears, but then I remembered I'd have to take the oil pump off and then in turn pull the oil pan down and then lift the motor up and do a bunch of stuff like that, which I do not feel like doing at all. So I read up on some forums and everyone said the stock timing chain is super strong and really good and I shouldn't worry about it. So I'm reusing it all. Now I can take the cam gear off. Now, because the heads are not off the motor, I'm gonna do some tricky stuff. I'm gonna thread in 2 water pump bolts into the cam. I've got 5/16 wooden dowels right here. I'll grab 2 of them. Then I'm gonna spin the cam by hand, nice and fast, which should put the lifters up in the trays. I can take 2 dowel pins. I'm pushing the wooden dowel pins into the lifter holes to hold the lifters away from the cam. And now I can pull the cam out. Ah yeah, the glorious Ron Burgundy cam. My dad installed this in this truck, I think when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, something like that. It's been in there ever since. LS1 cam, XR269. It's a very, very mild cam. You probably couldn't even tell Ron had a cam in it most of the time, but it did run like it had a cam. It had a super slight little tiny baby loped idle, and it did pull pretty hard up to about 6,000, but the truck Norris should be a little more aggressive. We'll put this one on the shelf though. We're not saying goodbye. Got the cam card for Ron's original cam, or original cam, in the glove box. And I'm gonna put it in the box, because you never know when we're gonna put together another LS. And that super mild cam would probably work pretty good in a 4.8 or something. It worked good in this truck, but didn't quite chop enough, which is what we're about to change. I just went ahead and cleaned the cam off with 2000 grit and some WD-40 just because it sat upstairs for an entire year plus, and I don't really want any surface rust or anything messing up the bearings. So now I'm gonna clean it off really good, lather it up, and toss it in. All right, I'm calling that clean. Assembly lube here, getting this thing nice and greasy. Do not want any dry starting. Extra dab for good measure, and in we go. Boop! Installed. Cam retainer, can toss back on now. 18 foot-pounds on these. Now we take the cam gear, which I have cleaned off thoroughly and assembly lubed. Got the cam gear on there, obviously lined up dot to dot. 26 foot-pounds. I was just standing here thinking, isn't it crazy how an engine that's this small can power a truck this big and power it pretty well too? I think that's insane. This ain't like little baby tiny little piece of metal, big rolling piece of metal. How does it do that? Can somebody explain in the comments? I have a nice shiny timing cover on the way in the mail, but we're kind of on a roll right now, so I'm gonna keep putting it together and I'm gonna clean up the socks. Basically brand new. Nice new rockers, sitting where they need to sit. Came with hardware too. I'm a big dummy and I forgot to soak the rocker arms in oil for 20 minutes as per the instructions, mainly because I didn't read the instructions. So I've just cleaned them off and I'm gonna do just that. I've got the BTR chromoly push rods here. They're hardened, a lot stronger than stock. I'm gonna toss them in the oil too, get them nice and lubed up. Engine building with Tom. This is my doctor's office level clean workspace. It looks great, I know. Building engines growing up with Papa John, it was always, it must be doctor's office clean everywhere. It must be very clean. It must be spotless and sanitized to not get any contaminants inside the engine. This one's been sitting here all day, open. I've been grinding stuff over there. I bet the bitch will still run though. Hey, it's been 20 minutes. These are slippery now. Uh-oh. And done. Valvetrain finished. Now I can toss the timing cover back on. Got a little bit of silicone around the gasket and on the lower corners. Timing cover actually doesn't look bad. I do say so myself. Hey Dad, what do you think of what I'm doing to your old truck?
Always wanted to put a blower on this thing.
Did you always want to put a big fat cam in it too?
It had a decent cam in.
Well, now it's got a decenter cam. And timing cover installed. What I'm gonna do now is clean off the block and timing cover and shoot them with some black paint before I reassemble everything else. Doing a lot of prep work on this one. The brake clean got this pretty good, but I'm still hitting it with prep all briefly. I would like to maintain the look of my badass aluminum cylinder heads. Feeling good. Feeling good. Got some AutoZone engine paint now. You want a secret? I've never actually built an LS motor. That is my first time putting a cam in an LS motor. You could probably tell. But it's in there. I hope it works. I'm going to very carefully spray the front of this motor. Totally not gonna hit a couple different accessories while I'm at it. Totally not gonna try my best to just blacken things. I think one more coat of that, and she'll be looking nice. You guys may recall Ron has a very slight header leak. A little tick, 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 tick that actually comes from the back tube of the headers, which have a cracked spot weld. So hopefully, now that we have this all open, I can grind that down and weld it up and no longer have an exhaust leak. Shot a little bit of paint on that weld because the MIG weld wire is gonna rust. I don't want these nice, pretty headers to rust. I'm gonna toss the balancer back on the wrong way. I use a hammer until I can get the bolt started, and then I use the bolt. Got a big socket right here that fits around the hole for the bolt. Use that to tap it in a good amount, then use the bolt. Start it by hand. Tight. For the spark plugs, I opted for NGK TR6s, which are a good cold plug for a boosted motor, and I have them gapped at 35 thousandths, which according to forums was the right thing to do. Hopefully they are. Now I can install my beautiful new polished valve covers, eBay's finest, but they're gonna make this motor look way faster than it is. Now it's time to mess with the intake. All I have to do here is swap these 34-pound injectors out for Deca 80s. There's a lot of gas in this fuel rail. Who'd have thought? I was under the impression they would not pop right in, but it looks like they are the exact same size. I just toss them in. FIC 34-pounders out. I'll set them aside because I'll probably use them for something else. Now that I've made a big mess, Deca 80-pounders going in now. Fuel rail can go on too. I feel like Ron Burgundy's fallen together so far. I'm sure there's going to be a horrible hiccup that throws a huge wrench in the plans, but right now, bloop, 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 bloop. That's how it feels. Beep, bop, bloop, bloop, bloop. Pulling out my protective paper towels. Getting the mating surface for the intake nice and clean, because now it's time to toss the intake back on. Thing's starting to look fast. There's not even a blower on it yet. Before we installed the Vortec V3 Supercharger kit, I bought it off Marketplace used, and well used at that, so now I'm cleaning it up, getting it hot, and I'm gonna paint it. I mainly just want the bracket to look better because it was super beat up and dirty. Getting ready to toss on the water pump now, which I've also beautifully painted, of course. You know what helped?
Bolts.
Bolts. I think I'm gonna go ahead and set this bracketry on, which includes the supercharger, of course. This is pretty badass. Ron Burgundy officially has a Vortec supercharger bolted to its motor. Come on. At some point, the fuse box on Ron appeared to have caught on fire. I don't know if that happened when welding was getting done to it or what, but thankfully I have a parts truck outside with a lot of spare fuses, and it looks like it didn't burn up the fuse block itself, just multiple relays and fuses in the fuse block. All the wiring looks fine too, so probably gonna swap it out and cross my fingers. I made a discovery that the alternator's not gonna work because I can't get the plug into the top of it past the intake, so now I'm gonna clock it, hopefully, and then it'll work. Clocking an alternator basically just means take off the bolts that hold the body to itself, and then hopefully you can twist it. So it might not be easy. I also don't know if I can clock this one. I have a spare, so if I destroy it, it's fine.
A few moments later.
I accidentally broke the alternator, so I'm using the stock truck one and reconditioning it right now with beautiful new paint. This alternator didn't work. I attempted to clock it, but ended up breaking it in the process. And then I took the alternator off of the truck and painted it black, and it clears perfectly. Everything clears. I don't have to cut, trim, sand. I just gotta bolt it on. Sweet! Now I'm just chipping away at plugging in random things such as the injectors and the various sensors. Thankfully, it's pretty easy.
Click. Click.
And click! Injectors connected. Throttle cable. Cruise control. Click. And boom! I'm putting the belt on, so I feel like I accomplished something, even though I really haven't. I still have a lot of work to do to get the truck running. But the final like 10% of like plugging everything in and hooking up all the hoses, figuring out where everything goes, that's what takes the longest. The last 10% always takes the longest. I say that realizing that the front of the truck is still not on, and I haven't even put the core support back on, but the engine is pretty close. Wow, I have accomplished so much. I realized I never really talked about the supercharger kit I'm using. I bought this Vortec V3 ProCharger style supercharger. I keep accidentally calling it a ProCharger. It's a Vortec, but this entire kit was actually meant for one of these trucks, although the guy I bought it off of had it on an S10. This kit, brand new, cost $4,800, and I got it used for $2,800, and I'm pretty sure it works. It should be fine. But this Vortec V3 supercharger has helical cut gears. They're allegedly quieter, which honestly I prefer if it were louder, but for the money, I'm not too upset. And it looks really good, and I'm very excited to hear it go, and then go, and then go, that's basically why it's on here. I made a very stupid discovery that I should have realized long before now. These valve covers are not for the truck style coil packs, and I don't feel like fabricating up adapters for them, so I guess these chrome valve covers are gonna go on the shelf. But thankfully I have a super awesome cameraman that cleaned off the stock ones and they look pretty good, so I'm gonna toss them on along with the stock coil packs because the ones I ordered also aren't here. It'll be all right though. Valve covers installed yet again. They're not quite as glamorous, but they kind of match the rest of the motor. Whatever.
Now the factory ignition coils off the truck still work fine, but they're all pretty rusty and grody. We cleaned them off really well and hit them with spray paint, and they're gonna do. I found some of these basically new old stock on eBay for like 180 bucks, but they're not gonna be here for a couple days, and I do wanna fire the truck up, so I'm gonna toss these on for now. Click. 2 bolts for now on those is gonna be fine. These MSD plug wires were already on Ron. I just cleaned them off real quick because it's MSD, it's fancy. They should be really good still. They should last forever. Click. Boom. The next step is basically to reinstall the core support and hook everything up. So before we do that, I have this area of the frame degreased and cleaned off pretty well. And I'm undercoating it with this brush-on, rust-free stuff. It's nice and sticky, it never dries all the way. It's rubber-based, and it will keep Ron from rusting out for at least a couple extra years. My goal with this stuff is to coat everything that's gonna be hard to get to after we put the core support and fenders back on. So I think that's pretty good. It's sealed off. And once it's up on the lift and the wheels are off and everything, we can button it up and make it nice. Before I put the core support back on, I'm removing the fan shroud. And since I got rid of the clutch fan, I'm gonna install 2 Mishimoto electric fans. Rerouting the AC lines was the hardest part of putting this back on, but now they're on, they're attached, and I can tighten down the core support. Oil cooler lines, click. 1 transmission cooler line, 2 transmission cooler lines. Rad hoses can go back in place. Hood latch. The old transmission cooler was A, bone stock and small, and B, had fittings stuck to it, so I just cut the lines right below it. That's just fine because I can deburr the lines and install a new, beefier trans cooler. I got this Mishimoto trans cooler on Amazon, and I didn't realize it was literally the biggest transmission cooler in the world. I saw the measurements, but I did not take any measurements. However, I do think it will still work mounted something like this. Yes, completely uneven, but it'll work. I'm gonna have to get a little bit creative mounting this, and I'm not doing that in this video because I wanna start the truck up, and to just start the truck up, I can loop these together and do the fab work later, just like I'm gonna wire everything later, do all the hard stuff later. We're starting to really reach a time crunch here, but I am determined to start Ron Burgundy up by the end of this video. So I have all the hoses plugged in, some of them are tight, some of them are not. Everything's wired in for the most part. I've got the fuse box right here, stranded by the bungee cord. I've got the computer held up with a zip tie, and now all I have to do is put this truck on the lift, put the fuel tank back in it, hook up the plugs. It should fire up. Will it? I don't know. I'm a little nervous the computer got fried when the fuse box caught on fire, but hopefully it'll fire up and we can listen to that new cam chop. So I say we get on the lift. Ron is back on the lift. Hell yeah. This is scary. I have had one of these fuel tanks spill, and it's not a fun experience. It's not a fun experience at all. Now I can crawl up in here and connect the fuel lines. I feel like I am doing things wrong, even though this can literally go in only one way. My genius cameraman just made a genius discovery that I never took the chain off. It's holding the gas tank to the trans dash. Wow, I'm pretty stupid. Thanks, cameraman.
You're welcome.
One strap here, another strap here. Back mounted. Front bolt also tight. Wow. Fuel tank is back in the truck. Last thing we're gonna do before firing Ron up is install a Racetronics fuel pump hot wiring kit. Ron Burgundy already has a Walbro 450 fuel pump in it because I planned on supercharging it 4 years ago, so installed one at the time. I've read up on a bunch of forums that say the stock wiring cannot handle the power current that 450 takes, but this nice plug-and-play hot wire kit does. It actually looks insanely easy. Basically, I have to run this up to the battery, run this up to the battery, and then plug all this back here, and it should work flawlessly. I'm running this up roughly where the fuel lines do inside the frame rail and tucking it up behind the cab like this. And it appears, first thing I gotta do, plug it first into the stock harness, click, and then plug it right into the fuel tank. That is awesome. They included little plug locks, and then it still uses a stock fuel level sender. All this stuff I can kind of tuckaroo in here, right like that, right there. I can kind of just tie that off with all the other wiring. I'm pretty confident that'll work, that'll stay, that'll hold up. Now, we'll lift the truck up. I want to mount this right here on the frame rail so it has a really good frame ground, but in order to do that, I have to clean the frame up and drill a hole for it, because this is a hefty ground. Boom! I'm gonna mount the relay upside down. Hopefully it still works that way. Then I'm gonna run the line up to the front. Because I just created a bare metal spot on the frame which has surface rust, I hit it with some super thick oil-based undercoating, so it should not rust, at least for a long time. Got the ground on the through bolt and the relay. Boom! That is a tight ground. None of the wires are super kinked or anything like that. Now I can take the power wire. I can run it all the way to the front. The lazy part of me really wants to just coil all this excess wire up, but the transformed part of me is gonna shorten it properly. Getting this power wire nice and hot and soldering it together. Now that I have this shortened, I'm gonna wait until I have the fenders and everything finished up on the truck here before I organize and tie this wire up really nice. But we can at least hook it up and see if the truck starts. This spot right here in the fuse box, which is a post straight off the battery without a fuse, is the perfect power feed. Beautiful! Cameraman, you think we should fire this thing up?
Oh yeah.
Got the battery nice and charged up hot. Gonna slap it in here. We are starting the truck up with the supercharger mounted and spinning, but I'm not actually gonna plumb it to the intake because this thing is not at all tuned for this current setup, and I don't want to be pushing any boost into the motor like that, but we will be able to fire it up and see if that cam chops. I'm not gonna lie, my heart is already starting to race. It doesn't seem like it, but we have been working on this truck for a solid week. In fact, more than a week. Cameraman was nice enough to do an oil change on this real quick, so I'm gonna cycle it over, let the motor crank and build up some oil pressure, then I'll plug the ignition coil harnesses back in, and maybe it'll start. I don't think there's a fuse in that harness. Can you tell me if you hear the fuel pump cycle?
Yeah. No.
No? That's not good. For the sake of entertainment, I'm gonna bypass that hot wire kit in case I did something wrong. I need to investigate, but I don't have much time. Just gonna unplug the hot wire kit, plug in the normal harness because it did work fine. Cameraman, does the fuel pump work? Okay, it does. All right, thank God. I was really nervous that there was a major problem with the fuel pump wiring because of that melty fuse box from before, but since I swapped the fuse box with the one from the parts truck, sounds like we have a fuel pump. So, what I'm gonna do is crank this motor over until I see oil pressure, and we're gonna connect the coil packs. We're gonna see if it fires. That should be good. Cameraman, I'm scared. Cameraman, I'm very nervous.
Did you see oil pressure?
Yeah, I think it should fire right up. We do have fuel pressure, and I realized I never plugged in any sort of MAF, so it's not gonna want to start. But for that split second, did you guys hear a little bump, 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 bump? Because I did. I heard a little more cam than before, and I also heard a lot more supercharger than before. wanted, I didn't plug in a mass airflow sensor. I'm not calling it quits, okay? Trust me, that's not enough for today. Oh, I'm very excited. I just want to hear that cam chop, baby. Set this tube basically on the supercharger, basically. It's basically on there, that's basically telling it how much air is going in, and I don't care, I'm starting it. This is a MAF that came with the blower kit. I'm gonna toss the truck MAF back on. Oh, this will work beautifully. Yeah, this is good. I'm super duper dumb. Again, not that I really think this is gonna make any difference at all. I put this on the supercharger when the supercharger is not connected to the motor. Still, don't think it's gonna run good. High five. The garage is now full of rich fuel smoke. Dude, it barely runs, but I heard a blower and I heard a fat cam. That's awesome, holy shit. This thing obviously needs assembled and plumbed and dyno tuned, but it runs. It runs, it needs so much work, but it runs. What do you think, Cameron? How'd she sound?
Pissed off.
Yeah. I want to hear it one more time. There's no coolant in it, so I can't run it more than like a full minute, and I'm not gonna, okay? But I want to hear it. That sounds like a tornado. That's the best sound of tornado I've ever heard. We're gonna die if we stand here much longer. Let's open the garage. Dude, this is awesome! Smell of victory. I wanna start it, I wanna idle it all night long, but there's no coolant in it. There's no coolant, the power steering cooler's not hooked up, the trans cooler's not hooked up. Oh, there's something wrong with the fuel pump wiring. Dude, I don't care. Ron runs again, baby. Ron runs again. That's my girl. Sure, it might not be buttoned up, but Ron Burgundy is officially supercharged. Something I've wanted to do for so many years, at least 5 years. In fact, no. I've wanted to do this my whole life. Papa John and I used to talk about it. Now it's here. It's got a blower mounted to it and spinning. I'm calling that a win. What do you guys think that fuel pump problem is? I didn't forget any fuses. It's got a pretty solid power source. Was the grease behind the ground the problem? Did I do something stupid there? I don't know. I'm not an electrician. I also worry that this video was a tad too boring because a lot of my videos have been pretty like action-packed the past few weeks. We've been doing a lot and getting a lot done. And I feel like I got a lot done here, but it was a lot of kind of like mumbo jumbo, tinkering on the motor. So let me know what you guys think. I love listening to your opinions. I love knowing what you guys want to see. If you just want to see me work on all this stuff and it happens when it happens, that's cool. If you guys want to see more of something specific, you want to see more of something specific, let me know. I'm all ears. I love listening to you guys. You guys are the reason I'm here, and I appreciate you very much. Now that being said, thanks for watching the best damn automotive content on YouTube. I'll see you guys soon. Unless you want to see me sooner, in which case subscribe to the Patreon. I have multiple cool cars there. I know you guys don't like that it's $5, but for $5 a month, you can watch literally dozens or hundreds of hours of videos right there. Speedy's equipment is restocked right now with mufflers, so go buy them. I was actually gonna make an ad and put it in the middle of this video and I forgot. So if you want a muffler, go buy them before they sell out again. And obviously, of course, as usual, check out tomsreefer.shop. Is that all, Cameron?
There's one more thing. We love them.
didn't say that already?
Not yet.
What if I hold it back? What if I play hard to get this week?
Don't throw it to him. That's rude.
I love you. Bye.